Hi, welcome to our online discussion, Facebook Live of Fahrenheit 451, the Big Read Wichita selection. I'm going to get that right. I'm librarian Sarah.
I'm librarian Racine.
And I am Suzanne Tobias. I'm a reporter with the Wichita Eagle. I'm so happy to be here.
And we are so glad that you are here.
Thanks.
To discuss this really groundbreaking and important book. And I hope all of you have read it, and if you haven't, you need to probably do that ASAP.
Yes.
So
there are copies all over town. It's easy to find.
Literally.
So. Yep.
Actually, fun story, if you see one of these where it says, don't read this book, we actually want you to read it. We've hidden a couple copies of these around town at coffee shops and restaurants and different places where people can congregate and discuss things. So if you see it, feel free to read it and then pass it on. We'd love you to write your name on it, maybe tweet a picture of it or share it on Facebook of you with the book.
Because there's nothing that makes you want to read a book more than seeing, do not read this book.
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome, you guys. What a great idea.
And on the back.
Oh, and on the back, it does say, please leave this book somewhere, anywhere, for someone else to find. Because we want to spread the literary resistance, that's what we were calling it, straight out of Hunger Games. We were just talking about how the Hunger Games is like this book, but you know, the Three Fingers, literary resistance. Yes, very, very important. Okay, so let's jump right in, I think. This book, for those of you that haven't, or just to maybe refresh your memory, is about a society where reading and really curiosity has been completely outlawed. It's actually been replaced by giant wall televisions where people can talk to this online, or not online, but this televised
family. Yeah, it becomes your family, and you have little seashells in your ears, which struck me as incredibly ahead of his time,
right?
Because they're earbuds, essentially, that you wear all the time.
And so by outlawing all of these things, they've made society completely even-keeled, right? Everybody's equal, ignorance is bliss, and if we find books in your possession, we will burn down your entire house, and you are going to jail, along with your entire family. So, you know, and neighbors are turning in neighbors, friends are turning in friends, so it's a very much a, what is it, a citizen police state?
Dystopian.
Yeah, I mean,
very dystopian, obviously. Yes.
And so what else would you do but sit in front of a TV and talk to your pretend family and listen to earbuds all the time?
Right.
So this story actually follows Guy Montag, who is a fireman who is, those are the folks that will actually go in and burn your house down for you.
Firemen in this world, firemen actually start fires instead of putting them out, and their tanks have kerosene instead of water.
Right. So, but he has, we start out with him, and we follow his journey to discover that books maybe are a little bit more than what he'd always thought that they were, that maybe there's something behind learning and reading and enjoying the written word. And so anyway, we'll just jump right in. That's what this book is about.
Well, it struck me as, I just want to say it's just such a perfectly timed choice, I think, for where we are right now in society. I mean, there's, with reality TV and all of the things, you know, tearing people away, people aren't reading as much as we know. They're not reading books as much as they were before. They're reading, you know, online or reading little snippets of things. And so I just think it's really interesting to talk about that topic in general. You know, what do books bring to our lives, and why should we be spending our time?
Well, and everybody's free time is so valuable.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that we were talking about were some tips that we had for reading. Set aside 20 minutes in your household every day. And whoever's there, they're turning off TVs or anything electronic and cracking open a book.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have that set, maybe after dinner, everybody grabs their book and reads for a little bit. And parents who read model that behavior for their kids are more likely to raise readers. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm off my soapbox.
No, I mean, but we talk so much about, that it's important to read, or, raising a reader, and there's all these initiatives, and every parent knows that we need to be reading to our kids, but to really think about, how important it is for our souls and and then society in general for people to read. I think we need to remind ourselves of that every now and then too, and I think that's obviously what this book does.
Well, and they say that reading fiction makes you a more empathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
And think about these people who are living in a society where fiction has been completely outlawed because, they've replaced it with TV, with all these things. And they're depressed. I mean, they are not a happy society.
But the idea is that taking away these things, the idea is when he reads, at one point Guy Montag reads Dover Beach, the poem Dover Beach to his wife and her friends in their house, and she just loves the language of it, and he's reading these lines of this poem, and this is when he's starting to discover that there's something more here, and their reaction is like, that made me sad, put it away. How dare you, make me sad? Let's just put that away. And I've had those experiences with people too, where it's just like, can we just read something more happy? This book brings me down, but it's those books that just really make you feel deeply.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and too, I think that I was thinking their reaction was more like, I'm thinking, and it hurts my brain, make it stop.
Yeah, well, there's a little
kind
of that
a thing.
too. Yeah,
and so, I mean, I understand where so it's like maybe it's a combination of the two, because
they are so used to being fed their entertainment and not having to, just looking and passively, staring at a screen or listening. It's frightening because this could actually happen.
Yes.
That's the whole time I'm reading this going, okay, yeah, this could actually, we're not far from this, really.
Well, okay, so he had a bead on the seashells that people put in their ears that were like earbuds. Mm-hmm. The parlor TVs, which were entire walls of people's homes, which I have I would never have dreamt that we'd have a TV that big.
Right. And it was written in 50, what was the year?
I think it was 1948.
Oh, was it?
I thought it was
53.
early 50s.
I was thinking
53, sorry.
So there are TVs, but this vision of, these wall TVs had to be.
And we were talking about, they watch the family, and they interact with the family. I was thinking the family had a correlation to nowadays with the Kardashians.
Oh, yeah.
But really, any reality TV. Like, I've been thinking on this since we were discussing it. But, yeah, like any reality TV, you
become invested in the characters.
Yeah.
Or The Voice or MasterChef or whatever. You start rooting for people. You get to know personalities, and you feel like you really know these. Yes, you know these people. But that's how you feel when you're reading a book too, when you think about it.
That's true.
But it's not as not as just sort of passive and.
But you're also thinking, and you're like I don't know. It's the same, but it's different.
Yes. That is
profound.
Hashtag deep thoughts. It's the same and also different.
And if you have any thoughts on anything that we're discussing, please feel free to comment along. We would love to have you join our conversation. So anyway, I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that really struck me throughout the whole 2/3 of the book, I guess, the first 2/3, was the captain, right? Baden. Mm-hmm. He is so well read, and he can just spout off Shakespeare and all of these different books and poems and stories, but it's always in a way that's like, no, books are still bad.
Right.
You're gonna read them. Everybody goes through this. You're gonna read it and you're gonna hate it and you're gonna see it's all fluff and awful.
It's confused me so much as a reader. I was really trying to figure him out because, and I know there's sort of a deeper meaning there that I can't wait to get your thoughts on, because I'm thinking he obviously cared. I admire people so much who can remember lines from passages from books, because I cannot.
No, I'm awful.
There are very, very, very few. Like the ones I had to memorize as a kid sort of come to mind sometimes. And like the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, like in Old English, but only the first 2 lines. But so people who can do that really impress me, and I think that it must mean something to them if they take the time to memorize it. And yet here he was spouting off these lines of literature and just saying, Yeah, I know the game,
Right.
but it's not worth your time.
Well, and I really like what you said, and I want to come back to the whole memorization thing a little bit later, because that's
Yeah.
another thing I wanted to talk about. But I think you're absolutely right, that you put forth that effort to remember something because it's meaningful to you.
Mhm.
But if you hate it, like, I just
Yeah.
can't imagine myself going to that trouble if it's something that bothers me so much,
Right.
like, as a way to prove my argument.
Well, and I think that we were kind of chatting about this earlier. Beatty, who's Guy's boss, he's talking about all of the firemen go through this. Well, do they really? And he must have
Right.
really gone through this. And he loves it so much, yet he puts it down. It almost sounds like he's disillusioned with reading or knowledge. You know, that some way, somehow, it's disappointed him or made him bitter. You know
Or-
how you love something so much that
Yeah.
you clutch onto it, but then
Something happened that we don't know.
and
what
it's-
happened. Or he wanted to maintain that sort of superiority. I
Like,
know this and you
That's
don't.
kind of
Yeah.
how I felt, I think.
I know this stuff.
backwards
Trust
and
me,
forwards.
it's not worth your
I'm
time.
authority,
Right.
you're not, I get to know
And we
it,
see
you
that
don't.
all the time. I mean, we see that in, you know, in personalities and.
And if he was disillusioned, just come find a librarian.
Yeah. And that's the message here today, folks. If you are disillusioned, come to the library where all of your troubles will be.
I won't lie,
answered.
it's not,
It
it's
is
not a
pretty-
lie.
It's healing.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's really interesting that he would, cause he does, he hates it. And it's almost like he's setting Guy up to fail, because he's like, let me spout all this wonderful language to you, but you're gonna hate it.
And
But
intrigue you
it's
with it,
really,
intrigue you with
really
it.
great, but you're gonna hate it. And I get to know it, but you're gonna hate it.
Yeah.
And there's something boiling under the surface.
It's like a
with
parent. It's
Guy.
like a bad parent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that's. We'll talk about that when you're grown up. When you're a grown up, but
exactly.
we know this stuff and you don't. But it's all right. It's
Right.
very frustrating, and Guy sort of has that feeling. I think like.
And he
what's
has
going
the
on here? I
teenager
wanna-
rebellion.
Yes, very much so.
In his 30s. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, okay. Guy, speaking of teenager, he meets Clarice,
Right.
the girl.
Mhm.
right?
Yes, and I
And
wanted her to
she's-
come back.
I know.
Yeah.
It was very abrupt. Her leaving
Yes.
was very abrupt.
Yes.
Well, and one of the book groups that I talked to, they were like, oh, this book is so disjointed. Or, you know, there's fits and starts and stops. Clarice is there, then she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering how you felt about that. You know, did that bug you in
It was
reading
frustrating.
Or...
It was frustrating, but I see that she just basically set up his whole different perspective.
She was
I
very much a
think.
catalyst in
Right.
his whole journey
Catalyst.
towards,
Words
because it
of
was
the day.
boiling under the surface. I mean, he was already
Yes.
hoarding books in his vent, right?
Mhm.
And which they allude to kind of at the very beginning. So he's already doing this, and then she's like, "No, but look, the moon. Haven't you ever just walked around and felt a breeze and smelled the woods?"
Which was so odd in this society
Yes.
for someone to be wandering around on
Right.
their own, like
Right.
just taking a walk.
Which one scene that really struck me was when he was running away, and this group of teenagers just wants to hit him in the middle of the street because he's walking.
Yeah.
He's just walking, and they're like, "That's weird.
He's a weirdo.
I'm going
Yeah.
to hit you with my car going
Yeah.
120 miles an hour."
Yeah, and these cars go really fast in this novel.
Just imagine
Yeah.
this tiny little like.
But think
Folks
about
on
it.
wheels.
Think about, and I was just in a waiting room, a dentist's waiting room this morning, and I looked around, having read this book just recently, and no one just sits anymore. And there's a line in here too, like, do we? Oh, but we have plenty of off hours. Off hours, yes, but time to think. I love that line
Yeah.
because yes, we have all this free time, but everyone's they're either on their phone. There's every waiting room
Guilty.
you're in has a screen.
Very
You know,
guilty.
I actually do bring. I brought my book, a different book that I'm reading to. It's because that's the other trick to get more reading in is always have one with you because you are always in line somewhere
Yeah.
or waiting for something, and it's good to pop out. But anyway,
Library plug. That's why I really like
Yes.
our ebooks that you
Yes.
can download to your phone.
so these people on their phones could have been reading. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's so odd anymore to just see someone sitting and watching, and it does sort of
Well, it's kinda
like
creepy.
make you suspicious
They're
sometimes.
sitting there watching you. I don't
Yes.
want to just sit there watching.
I know, so that's.
I am though.
Man, just guilty
All right,
all
I won't
around.
turn you in if I see you just lurking
I'm
in
just
there.
people watching. It's
Yes,
interesting.
I do love that. Yes,
And
I
I
love it as well.
wonder about their lives and
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're weird.
Make up little
and I'm gonna call the
stories
fireman on
about-
you.
yeah.
You must have
There
books
we go.
out.
Yeah.
Was it? But you're right. When you said the first 2/3 of this book, there was a very the last part of the book had a very adventure novel quality to it that was like, oh well, that turned all of a sudden.
Because it was very, very urban, and then like woods.
Yeah. Oh, there's a countryside
And
Well,
it just got
and-
me to thinking about this society. Like the whole society lives in towns, or in cities and urban communities, and like farmhouses. Because he kept talking about this farmhouse, and then it was just that. So it got me to thinking, like, where do they do their mundane stuff? How do they get
Right.
groceries?
Right.
Who cooks for them? Do they have another robot that brings them
Yeah.
their food? You know, like I just, it got me to thinking about all these things because I must have a lot of chores to do.
Yeah, I know. Who gathers the eggs?
I could just
The
sit there and
cows.
talk to my family. No, I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Are you tired of adulting? Is that what
Yeah.
you're telling us?
Who does their things?
It is really hard.
No, I mean just this world he creates is, and I'm not a real science fiction fan, although I do kind of like this new dystopian. I mean that's not new, but the dystopian sort of trend. But yeah, Hunger Games and all those things you can sort of see in here too, which I love. But he creates a world that that raises as many questions I think as
Well, because I think
the
because he's
answers.
brief on purpose.
Yes,
It
probably.
seems like and like you were saying, disjointed. I got the feeling of it being this very ethereal, kind of hazy world.
Mhm.
And I think that might have been like Guy waking up from his haze,
Mm.
right? Everybody else is in this haze. They're constantly talking to their parlor family. If they do have social time, it's with the parlor family. And the the language very much evokes this kind of ethereal haziness. And
it takes you, like a dream, it takes you a while to figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
It took me a long time to figure out what was up with his wife. And,
so I took that as like Guy's kind of waking up to
Right.
this
No, that's a
this
great
world that exists where people actually memorize books in order to save them.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That I
Did you
love.
have any thoughts on that?
That's great. No, that is a really good point because I did have that sort of sense when I was reading it that it was very. Yeah, hazy is a great word because he just tells you enough to sort of create.
One,
yeah,
two,
almost
three,
a
four,
foggy,
five, six,
an
seven.
out of
Monday
focus.
was-
Yes,
like, it's
yes, an
just
out of
very-
focus picture
yes.
of this world, and then it makes you wonder. But that really speaks to. I don't know. It speaks to the whole theme of what books can do. You know, I mean, it sort
Absolutely.
of creates this reality, and you have to fill in the.
Mhm.
You have to use your brain to fill in the.
To think about it.
spaces.
You have to sit and think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sit and think. What a concept.
Well, so if you have thoughts on Fahrenheit 451, please leave them in the comments section. We're going to put some read-alikes. I've picked a teen book
Mhm.
as the best read-alike I found for this one. It's called Feed
Oh, I've
by
read that.
Anderson. Have you read
I
that?
have read that. and
Isn't it?
That's a great pick. Yes.
Yeah, because
M.T. Anderson.
M.T. Anderson, I've got it right behind us. It's the story about a boy who meets a girl,
Yes.
and it's
Outer space, though, right?
No, I think it's more like 15 minutes into the future.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because everybody has computer implants to access the web, and this boy meets a girl who grew up without those implants, and she has to use she has an
Yeah.
imagination. She thinks about things, and so it was a great updating, I think,
Yeah.
for this story.
The thing that struck me about that book, too, was this idea of something planted in your brain that has commercials on it.
Yeah.
Commercials
Yeah.
for products. Oh. yeah.
Well, and they can't sell to her, and so that's where she gets into trouble.
My read-alike would be, it's not a read-alike really, but one book that this reminded me of was The Book Thief, which was...
Oh, see, I haven't read that one.
Oh, sorry, I had to wiki growl at that
Oh,
one.
yes, love that.
You gotta
This
read
idea of
that.
saving something and
Yeah.
He talks about how it was sad,
That's
and I didn't want to read
wonderful.
the sad book. That's why I didn't read
You
that.
should, it'll be okay.
I'm
You
gonna
can read
read
it.
a happy
You can
book.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like happy books too.
But I do think that there's a time and a place for the books
Oh.
that move us, that make
Mhm.
us actually think about things.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
So getting ready to wind up here today.
This
we
was
want
not enough
to
time.
Thank
I know.
Suzanne
yes.
Oh, thank you guys.
Tobias
That's great.
from the Wichita Eagle. And join us next time, November 9th at 12:30. We're going to be talking about Sisterland by Curtis Sutton. I know. I loved Eligible.
I did
Eligible
too.
was one of my favorite
It's a happy
books.
book.
Wait, is Sisterland the one about the earthquake?
Yeah.
I think I read it.
Sisters, twin
I read that
sisters.
too. I am not like this, you guys.
Yay! Yay!
Good.
Twin
American
sisters
wife.
with psychic abilities, and I think it's going to be a great talk
Yeah,
on that
that'll
one.
be good.
Yeah, we're excited. Oh, and if you need to check that book out, you can check it out here at Central. We actually have some copies available. Just tell them you need one for the ICTBC. Or just ask for Sarah or Racine, or message us on Facebook, and we can even send it out to a branch if that's easier for you. But I would like to end before we actually turn off with what book would you not only save but memorize? Like, what book would you put forth that extra effort to memorize?
Go ahead.
I would memorize Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling. It has such a wonderful lyrical feel. The cat who walked by his lonesome, best beloved, this befell, be happened and became.
Language.
Language.
Language
So-
is important.
Yeah, my book that I'd save is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, because I love that book. But the one I'd memorize probably is the one I remember from childhood as the book that made me start reading, which was The Phantom Toll Booth.
I love that book.
Wordplay. Love
It's
it.
so good. Well, my book that I would save and my book that I think I would memorize, same. Because the reason that I would save it was because of the language and the what it made me feel. Had lots of feelings.
Feels.
All the feels. All the feels. And it was Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. And it just came to me at a time when I really, really needed to read those words. And
that's great.
And I love it
That's
to
a
this
good
day.
one.
So
I think you should start memorizing right now.
I probably should, because I
never know what's gonna
remember
happen.
like the 2 lines that I wanted to remember, because I'm really bad at memorization.
So get started.
I will do that. Look for it next time. Nope, just kidding. We're gonna talk about this, Julia.
And then she will recite Song of Myself.
Yeah.
And,
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll continue this conversation in the comments. Racine, final words.
Thanks for being here. We'll see you in November.
thanks. Keep reading.
Bye.
Bye.